Right?
Rosie Herrera.
So now you have it. That's a problem. So when I started the company, I developed a choreographic institute to develop voices of color in my community, to create work and start building, before this Latina program, and start building these leaders. And so the Latina program was, it just followed along. It was great. And so it's mission driven for me.
I want to mention quickly that Rosie Herrera, whose work I admire very much and have since she started, did a work, 4 or 5 years ago? Rosie Herrera, of course, is a Cuban-Puerto Rican-American choreographer from Hialeah and New World School of the Arts graduate. Shout out to Mary Lisa. And who did an incredible piece for Ballet Hispánico through their choreographic institute, inspired by this strange chapter of her life, dancing in a cabaret on Cayocho with feathers and hoochie mama costumes y todos. And I have to tell you, she told me, the first interview I did with her, little side story, she was doing cabaret, and she decided she was going to go into mime. I kid you not. And I think it was Florida State University, because she has this very high-pitched, breathy, girly voice, and so she thought she would always get these bimbo parts if she stayed in cabaret, so she was going to go into mime so she wouldn't speak. And then she discovered modern dance, and that was that.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's talk about Tania Perez Salas, who is very famous in Mexico. Yes, very well known. And this piece, I want you. You have to explain this piece. 3-14-16. 3-14. 16. But how did you come to ask her? And this piece is different from most of her work, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's different in the way we've done it. So 3-14-16 is the number which equals pi, and pi is the ever-ending number. It's cyclical, right? Almost. And so she decided, when I told her I'd love, you are a preeminent choreographer in Mexico. I need una mexicana. I want to gather all our folks, our peoples, right, in our repository of, in our repertory. So I said, I'd love for you to do a piece that says something about your Mexican soul. And I always talk to a choreographer like that. She was like, I'm doing a piece, it's Mexican because I did it. I was like, brava. And I love it because it really balances off the program in the way that it's like, okay, everyone, you saw these iconic representations, but that doesn't, again, back to identity, that doesn't identify us thoroughly. So she's created a piece focused on pi, and that can mean so many things. So this is one of those modern dance works, right? You need a reverb there. That some people go in and say, I didn't get it. Maybe. This piece is very visual. To me, it is like a painting, like an abstract work of art, that you're looking at shadows and light and the way relationships are built because of the contrast of colors. And so I always love to say, when you're coming to a contemporary dance company or a contemporary dance piece that is abstract, that you're opening yourself up to not looking for narrative, but looking for a way in to like everyone, when you go to a museum, if you go up, listen, I go to museums, I'm like, it's just a black box. But then I sit, even myself, I said, wait, there's something going on with this artist. What is it? And I might not have the answer, and that's okay. Because I think the arts are about welcoming you into a non-judgmental arena, a space that allows you just to be in. And we forget that, and that's the thing about live theater. You want to allow yourself to exist. You're not, just because you're sitting down doesn't mean you're not participating. Your mind is going 90 miles per hour. How could you not be participating? Unless you're thinking about dinner. And you're not participating, right? But it's almost, and I always like to do this because I have such a hard time with meditation, because my mind is always spinning. And it's just like when you're meditating and you say, there's that thought, just say, I acknowledge you, and let it go away. Now focus back, right? So I just want to give you that, because I think even as artists, everyone thinks we're in this field where we're just talking about the aesthetic and how this piece was developed. But we also have to come into these works. We also have to look beyond ourselves, because we also have an aesthetic and a taste.
And I have to say this, in the visual arts world, in the arts world in general right now, and I've noticed it a lot in the visual arts world, there is so much focus on identity, that your work speak to your identity, speak about it, speak to your ethnicity, your heritage, to socioeconomics, to politics. It's a moment in culture now where there's a great deal of focus on and interest in that. And so it's good to remember that the art can just be, in whatever genre it is. It doesn't have to have a point of view. It doesn't have to have politics. It doesn't have to be about your identity. It can be just what it is. That Balanchine cliche, if you look at a vase of flowers, you don't ask yourself what it means, you just know that they're beautiful. Or Cunningham.
Yeah, and I would just add to that vase of flowers is something that we've grown up with, that we know, so it's very tangible to us. And when you're in a performance that you don't have that context, then it becomes even harder for us. But I think there's always a way in. And the thing about tonight's performance is you're going to see some of the most beautiful dancers around today. And I say that with all pride, because they are gorgeous. And so if you could just even find yourself, I'm going to look at that technical brilliance. That's good.
And two of them graduated from New World, as did their rehearsal director.
It's like a feeder system all of a sudden. My goodness, I didn't know that was going to happen.
Yeah. So we can open up to questions. We're a little early, but questions usually prompt more discussion. So, yes, Giselle. Hello.
So first I'll just say that I love to hear about all the different works and to learn about the choreographers, especially the piece Con Brazos Abiertos, because I think so many of us feel exactly the same, where my parents immigrated here from Central America, and I was always grappling with, I don't want to be too Central American, I don't want to be too Hondureña, but I also want to be American, and you almost feel alone. You feel like you're the only one in the world that feels this way, but it's not true, So I love that you're bringing this to light and talking about it, because a lot of people feel the way I felt, right? And so my question is, what is in the future of Ballet Hispánico? Are you looking to cover maybe like different works from other countries, right? And what is your process? Do you actively seek these out, or do you just kind of come across choreographers in your path and decide this is what's next?
So I don't seek works from other countries per se. I seek artists, choreographers that speak to the mission and vision of the organization. But it's a great question, because we're turning 50, and for the past decade I've been building Latina and Latino artists. And so for our 50th, I'm going to start bringing in very well-known choreographers, because I think that leads to, you know, also opening up a new, I mean, not that these choreographers aren't well known, but we're talking about the William Forsythes of the world. Because I think it leads us to saying that this is a Latino company, but we're not going to be held down by just that identity. Because you know, I say this all the time, this is an American company focused on the Latino community in America. And so as an American company, we do it all. These dancers are remarkable. So we'll be doing a lot more variety of artists from other places. We just opened up at the Joyce last weekend, closed at the Joyce, with 2 choreographers who were Asian American, because my interest when you talk about what's moving you, what makes you choose certain things for this vision, I'm also interested in the intersection of cultures. So we have Chinese in some of our Latin American countries, the African diaspora that's in our country, you know, the Arabic that's in the Spanish.
Shakira.
Right. So all of that really shows us who we all are and how we are connected. We're you know, so when you talk about I feel alone, if we see ourselves as connected further beyond just, you know, here, I think it'll help. But it's very important to do those works that speak to the issue at hand for who we are in this country.
It's interesting. So Ailey, sorry I keep talking about Ailey.
Yeah, I'm not happy with that.
And also Dance Theater of Harlem. And it's interesting that these are all, what do I call it? So specific, culturally and ethnically founded or rooted companies that have been around for a very long time and are now, you know, at a new generation. They've gone past their founders and their founders' generation, and they're all going, okay, who are we? And how does our repertory define us? And can we make that step and say we are an African American company, but we are a dance company and an excellent dance company that can do anything. And it's very interesting. It's interesting to hear that you're also seeking to expand the company's repertory and identity in that way. And it's also interesting to me that these companies that have this culturally and ethnically specific origin are probably the leading, most long-lived, highest quality modern dance company.
Yes.
Because Taylor, I don't know what's going to happen with Taylor now.
Oh, they're doing really well, and they've also moved on from Paul Taylor's works. They're really broadening up. It's fantastic.
So anyway, it's a moment. It's a change.
You know, I love talking to you because you make me connect even more dots. It's interesting that, you know, the 2 companies, Ailey, myself, and even Dance Theater of Harlem, we're all kind of in the same generation. And so we're a generation that grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and we're scoundrels. Because that was, at that time, you know, it was go out and do it. You know, forget it. So that brings a different kind of focus than what Mr. Ailey did. He was trying to get that voice there. Tina was trying to get at the table. We're at the table, and we're saying, I'll have steak, please.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we're leading a conversation. So I'm interested to see what our next
No, not the rice and beans. I'll have steak, please. I'll have Chinese food.
Thank you. That's exactly what I said, right? I'll have this. And so I'm fascinated by what the next generation will do. Because I think, you know, it's great to be able to say, I am this, but there's so much to just one person. So when you put a company together, and a vision, it's remarkable.
Is your dance company exclusive just to Latino dancers? And where do they come from?
No, we have a lot of Latinos and Latinas, and then we have what I call hybrids, half Latino, half whatever, anything else, and then we have our honorary Americanos, and they come from. I have someone from Cuba, Spain, Italy, Brazil, Tampa, Virginia. Yeah, and it's really remarkable, and it's important. I have to say something. I wrote an article about this many years ago when I started. I had someone hound me about why aren't all the dancers Hispanic. I was like, is there a look to Hispanic? Do we all look the same? So I had to really process that as a young director for the company, because it was important for me to then say to the audience, go beyond, because we look so different. I mean, a Latinx person can be as blonde as a Swiss or as dark as someone from Africa. The gamut is there. And an Asian and this and that. I mean, it is a culture. It's not a race.
And how large is your company?
14 dancers currently.
Yes.
They had a great superintendent's day.
You don't have to be super quick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, they had a great superintendent show on February 19th here in Summer Day, Coach Austin. I noticed that with the schools.
I'm sorry, what is the superintendent show?
Well, over Cavallo, it was headed by them. They had all 45 schools performing, and it was superb here. It was here. It was superb. I noticed that with the schools, like elementary, junior high, and high school, they did very diversified when it pertains to size, when it pertains to gender, and complexion stuff. It tends to change though. When they're, when it's older, when it pertains to companies, then it becomes a different story. The females tend to be small. I noticed that, but when I noticed with the diversity of sizes too, with the questions and everything, and the genders, because they were boys, they were able to do the dances just as well. They were very, very vivid with that. So I wonder what's to change. The schools do the theoretical part, but the reality, it becomes very different. I noticed that.
No, you bring up a good question, and I think that has a lot to do with technical ability. Although it might look like those kids are doing just as well,
Yes.
each director and each company needs a certain prowess in their artist,
Yes.
and so the work to get that technical prowess takes a lot more time, and so those kids
Yes.
change. And you're right. It's painful, and we need more dancers of color on stage all the time in major companies, and sizes too, right? But the issue is that some of the work that's done in some of these companies, sometimes it works, sometimes it's not. You have to have. I've seen sizable dancers that can really go, but that doesn't always happen. However, there is a playing field. In flamenco, I want my flamenco dancer to be sturdy.
Oh, okay.
Because it comes age, there's passion, there's duende that lives because they're living life a different way. So it's just what the company needs. Yeah. But I hear you. I hear you.
I remember I used to dance a lot of salsa in the 90s. And so this is social dancing, but I remember this guy, I didn't know his name, but I used to see him on the dance floor at Starfish. He was like a balloon on feet. He was very round, and he had the most perfect rhythm. And he was such a good partner in salsa. The man just has to lead the woman. It's such an art to it. And I could never believe that guy is so big, and he is so light on his feet. And women love to dance with him because he was such a good partner. And I think the reason he could move is he was so tuned into the rhythm. He was right on, he wasn't on top of it, he was just carried by it. That rhythm picked up all that weight of his and let him move. I talked to him years later, and I actually figured out it was the same guy. And I met him, I said, "You?" And he's like, "Yep, I lost all that weight."
You know, would you mind if I ask the audience a question?
No.
So, for those of you who know me, you've seen the company, but is this the first time for anyone here seeing the company? Could you raise your hand?
Oh, wow.
That's great. And so I'd love to know, do you have any expectations? And what are they? What do you think you're going to see today?
Don't be shy.
Really, it's great for me.
Let me ask you something. I saw on PBS a few months ago a program. Was that you? Was that your company?
Yes, Dance on Film, Lincoln Center. That's it.
It was great.
Thank you so much.
Great. That's why I'm here.
That's why you're here.
After that, I kept looking and looking to see where can I see you.
Right, you saw a very Cuban piece that finished, right?
Yeah.
Club Havana. We're not doing that tonight. It's a fabulous work. We do have it in the repertory. We're not doing that. And actually, we did our Carmen.
Yeah.
And it's a very contemporary Carmen. In fact, it's all in black and white. The passion is in the movement and in the character building.
Yeah, but you're good.
Yes, well, I appreciate that's how I. Gracias. So I'm interesting because it's tough. It's something that I work with. I mean, when you come to see something called Ballet Hispánico, you know, I'm always interested to see what the general audience thinks of a name.
I'm interested. I've seen the video, some of the work, but I'm interested in the fusion and the kind of globalization of the work that you brought. Some of what you've been discussing, but also taking the whole cultural tradition to it and fusing to another level and using all the techniques, the modern, the ballet, the whole thing, and taking what, in my mind, growing up seeing flamenco, you know, and now seeing it all fused and coming to a whole other level. So, from listening to you, you can reinforce my impression of what I'm going to see.
Well, wonderful. I'm glad that happened.
Any other thoughts? What does Ballet Hispánico make you think? Or what's the picture in your mind? Yes?
Because of the name of the company, I was trying to find out what kind of emotions can you let us discover for ourselves.
¿De dónde eres?
I'm from Colombia.
Qué lindo. Gracias.
What kind of, can you say a little more about what you mean by that? I don't quite know.
You know, I was born in Colombia, then half of my life I lived in Spain. So that kind of duende that people used to find in flamenco, I find in any other kind of rhythms. And for me, it's not just flamenco, that strong passion. What I like to find is like a bright happiness. You know, the music that we have in our culture.
Wonderful. Well, you get a little bit of that. Maybe a lot of that. Okay. Well, thank you. I'm always curious as to, you know, the thoughts of the audience. And so, if you stay after, we're going to have a post-performance talk. We, of course, would love to hear your responses.
Yes, please do stay and tell your seat neighbors to stay. We're going to have a conversation afterwards we hope you're going to be, we know you're going to be just inspired and on fire and have felt so much and thought so much, and it'll be your chance to talk about that and to talk about what you felt and to ask Eduardo some more questions. You're going to actually see this stuff and to ask about it as well. But please stay. Eric Fliss, the general manager here, always says it's the conversation you have in the car. I prefer to think of it as the conversation you have in the bar.
Yes.
Where all civilized post-show conversations take place. You know, unfortunately there will be no beer. But really, please stay. It's not a test. It's a conversation. So, unless anybody else has anything else they want, yes, sir.
It has nothing to do with tonight's show.
Yes.
You said that when you danced with this very fat person, he was too.
It wasn't a show. It wasn't a show. It was. I used to go dancing, salsa
I'm
dancing
talking
in clubs.
about, not about tonight's. I'm talking about your experience.
Right. It wasn't a performance.
Socially, with a guy. You said because he was tuned in to the rhythm.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
More than that, he was tuned in to his partner. He has to have a
Yes.
partner
Yes.
for it to be smooth.
Yes, brilliant.
In salsa, yes. In salsa, yes.
All
Or yes, absolutely. No, in any kind of couple dancing, yes, you have to be tuned into your partner, and it isn't smooth.
We had a salsa class last night here. It was a little salsa party, and it's one of the things I tell the anyone who's taking the class when they're holding. Say, please don't look at your feet. Just look at the eyes of your partner. Somehow or other, the communication starts, and you'll be fine. So there's a lot of truth to that.
But I
was talking to one of the principals at Miami City about the same thing. When you've taken the role of such and such, are you dancing with the ballerina or the lady that you have a relationship with in her role? And he said, it all starts with the eyes.
Mm-hmm. But it's both, because you are dancing with the ballerina, the woman that you know, that you're physically in the studio with every day, and in class with, and in rehearsal. And in that piece, she's also the role, the person, or the energy of that role.
Oberon is dancing with Titania, not with Susie McGill from, Chicago.
But he's also dancing with the Susie, the woman that he knows that he's in the studio with every day.
Who knows how to take on that role.
So man, if I can interject here just for a quick second.
Sorry.
No. I think it's a process. Just like any art form, dance is a process. And when I work with my dancers, when I coach the dancers, while they're learning, it's Susie or Jenna or Ayla or this person or that person. They're learning it, and then together we go on this journey on becoming this next. And even these pieces that are not role specific, because all these ballets you'll see tonight are not role specific. There is still intention. There is still impetus that you must develop with your partner in order to take the audience and translate what the choreographer wanted. So it is quite an interesting journey. I think we're all saying the same thing, but it does start. The genesis is you walk into the room and the choreographer says, and go. And then from that moment until the stage, you have developed a relationship that goes beyond who you are to who you've become in the work.
And wasn't the choreography evolved too by the nature of who the dancer is?
Absolutely.
Which is another part of it.
Exactamente. Sí.
Okay, we are going to wind down because it's almost 7:30, I think. And thank you all for coming.
Jordan, thank you.
Thanks a lot.